Good morning, everyone. This is John Kogan. I'm the CEO of Performative, the online community for corporate finance, accounting, treasury, and related professionals. First, I would like to welcome everyone to today's webinar, Technology Demo, How Host Analytics Streamlines the Budgeting, Planning, and Financial Reporting Process. Host Analytics' complete online application suite gives executives full visibility into business performance, allowing them to make more confident decisions. Finance and accounting teams free up time wasted on collecting data from spreadsheets and transition systems because Host Analytics streamlines and automates fragmented financial and operational processes such as budgeting, planning and forecasting, financial and management reporting and disclosure, including XBRL, financial consolidation and close, strategy management, operational and transactional analytics and dashboarding, and external drivers. Today we're going to hear from a speaker who's a longtime finance and accounting professional and executive, as well as an expert, of course, on the Host Analytics system. I would like to thank Host Analytics for helping us make this event possible as today's sponsor. And we've got a couple of items we'd like to cover just very quickly before we get going. First, a quick welcome to Performative. Performative is the largest and fastest growing online resource for senior corporate finance, treasury, accounting, and related professionals. It's a very, very large community, over 500,000 of us, and basically we help each other out online. It's very simple. People ask questions, people answer questions. It's all peer-based, so typically when you ask a question or read an answer, it's coming from someone who is, well, our average user has about 2 decades under their belt in finance, accounting, or treasury, so very experienced folks. All of it is completely free and noise-free, and you can check it out at performative.com if you haven't before. A few notes on today's event. First off, a link to today's presentation and a link to the video recording of this webinar will be sent out to all attendees within 24 hours of the event. And the soft copy is actually already posted at performative.com/resources. If you would like to go ahead and grab it now and take notes as we go along, etc., you can go ahead and get that. A quick reminder, there's no CPE for this webinar. This is a product demo webinar. Please ask questions on today's topic via the questions box in your GoToWebinar control panel at any time in the event. We keep an eye on the questions as we go along. If it's a clarifying question, we might stop and actually answer that question right in the middle of things. If it's a question about the product, how it might be used, or anything related to today's topic, then we'll probably hold it for the Q&A section of this morning's webinar, which will come towards the end of the webinar event. Finally, you will be asked to take a short survey today regarding the webinar, and there's some very specific questions in there. We would love you to take a minute after the event to answer the questions. It's very quick and simple. We also make it very easy for you to request a connection to either today's speaker or the sponsor of the event. So if you'd like to be connected with our speaker today, or if you'd like us to connect you with someone at Host Analytics who's sponsoring today's event, it's just a click of a mouse away, and we'll go ahead and we'll be happy to connect you via email after the event. That's it for preamble for today's event. So we've got a lot to cover this morning, and we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. And to take us there, it's my pleasure to introduce Sherry Peck, who is a solution consultant at Host Analytics. Sherry comes to Host Analytics with over 4 years of experience in financial software as a solution consultant, primarily in accounting and enterprise resource planning products. During her career, Sherry spent 8 years as controller for several publicly held companies, as well as she was a worldwide consolidations manager for a $2 billion computer company in Silicon Valley, where she also implemented and used some major financial ERP systems. Sherry spent the first 6 years of her career in public accounting at Ernst & Young and is a certified public accountant. Sherry, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Well, thank you, John, very much. It's a pleasure to be able to talk to all of you today. And before I get started with the actual software demo, I just wanted to go through a couple of high-level concepts and reiterate some of the things that John had just talked about what we provide here at Host Analytics for our customers, and why we think corporate performance management, and specifically why budgeting and planning solutions are so important, especially these days, to companies. When we think about companies, that are using outdated manual. The biggest of those being Excel spreadsheets, which unfortunately I had to use and was really quite inefficient. What happens by using those systems, the process takes too much time. There can be very frequent errors. It's expensive and slow to send spreadsheets back and forth and then be able to pull it all together and roll it up. And if you make any mistakes, obviously any kind of mistakes that make their way to a public disclosure can be very costly and embarrassing to your company. So what Host Analytics does is we have tried to make that whole process a lot more efficient and more reliable. Deloitte did a survey and published it in their CFO Signals report earlier this year, and they said that the #1 challenge faced by finance organizations is being able to provide metrics, information, and more importantly, the technologies and tools needed to make sound business decisions. Companies want to be able to provide the right data at the right time to give their executives information to make sound business decisions. So I'm sure that's something that all of you have thought about or face daily. So what needs to be done first with the budgeting and planning is to organize the key data and the processes. You can see on this slide the flow of information goes through the various roles and activities during the process, but it's a complex process, and even within finance there's many people involved. When I do the demo in a few minutes, you'll see I address some of the different roles, and you can see that unless all that information is going efficiently and accurately from one step to the next, it's building and it doesn't get to the end result the way that it's going to be most useful. If you think of cloud technology is I guess if you compare it to traditional software, the on-premise software systems that so many of us have used, think of it like a power system or a power-producing plant where it's expensive and there's a lot of infrastructure that has to be done. There's, of course, high upfront costs, a lot of maintenance that needs to be done, versus a cloud system where you're, in essence, getting your electricity and your utility power off of a grid. It's a similar concept to how we set up the financial software system here. The cloud technology represents moving away from this traditional utility-based approach to one that uses a subscription-based model. This means that the total cost of ownership and the time to value is decreased, and you begin to see value from your investments much quicker. Instead of having to pay for all the upgrades to get the systems uploaded and to get new hardware and software, all of that instead in a cloud-based model is included in your subscription price. So it requires far less IT involvement and cost, and it really can be a system that is maintained and run by the finance organization. So what is the world standard in business decisions? Well, what Host Analytics does is help companies put into place global standards and best practices so that our customers can very easily make quick decisions on initiatives such as, should we cut our costs here? Or should we invest in certain areas? Or should we hire? Companies can then make no-go or go decisions based on the real-time financial facts. This includes things like what-if scenarios. It's probably something that you're asked many times and need a tool to be able to give you that information. You can see that this affects every role in the organization. This is not just finance. This is definitely operational as well. And the data that you need to be able to make those decisions is coming from both internal and external systems, both financial and operational, and it's needed on a timely basis. It's not just people sitting at their desks looking at their computers anymore. We need to be able to access this information real time on our iPads, even iPhones, or in a very efficient manner. You'll see here on the next slide some of the customers that represent the many different industries that use host analytics. These represent companies that are large enterprises all the way down to small, privately held companies, and all those in between. You may even see companies very similar to yours on here. And Host Analytics offers the only full corporate performance management solution in the cloud. That over on the left-hand side, you see this includes consolidations, reporting, budgeting, being able to disclose your information, which all leads to being able to take correct strategy and make decisions based on the right information. The people that work at Host Analytics have come from market leaders. So because the corporate performance market is expanding, Host has a very qualified team of people that are representing the software. If I go one step further into the detail of what is included with the Host products, budgeting is our main product, and you can see it includes things, and as I get into the demo, you'll see that it budgets for all aspects of your organization. The consolidations, it has a separate module to do. This is the true accounting consolidation, not just rolling up your budget information, but truly handling the GAAP or the accounting rules and being able to do multi-currency translations, being able to handle intercompany and elimination entries, and rolling all that information up to present consolidated information. Host Analytics also includes the tools to be able to disclose that information in very polished ways, as well as starting from the base financial statements all the way up to being able to make presentations and show that information in formats that are ready for a board of directors, or maybe even the SEC 10Q and 10K reports. And I'll get to that a little bit in my demo. Host also has the ability to bring information in from outside of your own company's systems. So things like indicators, maybe customer confidence, or being able to benchmark your data against other companies. And you can see at the bottom what Host Analytics does is bring all the information from your existing systems, your ERP systems, customer management systems, your payroll, as well as your general ledger and your accounting systems. All of that can be brought into the Host system or the Host database to be able to be the basis with which you perform the budgeting and the various processes. And most recently, we have just recently added a complete business analytics tool that sits on top of it all to be able to truly show the health of your organization and look at graphical representations of how your information and how your business is doing, to be able to let you know where to go and drill down into the details to get the information you need to make those decisions or to give it to the decision makers. So with that introduction, I'm going to start my demonstration. And
I'm just handing over right now, and I would suggest that folks maximize their screen so that you can see all of the details on the demo screen from Sherry's machine.
All right, thank you. So what I'm going to do is, I mentioned the different roles in an organization, and that a budget process really isn't just the finance people sitting, in their department. It really goes out to the field, and there's people all over your organization that really have the information and the knowledge that should be included in your annual or, your plan and how you're going to run your company. So I've logged in as, and you can see up on my right-hand screen, as a field manager. Let's say his name is Alan Glazier. He is out in the field and is responsible for a sales department. So my screen here is really quite simple, and you'll see as I move through another role the differences. But to start with, my budget control panel is like my main springboard that I go into the various processes. And we have a number of scenarios that are available. In this case, Alan has access to, at this point, the 2012 budget, and in a few months he'll be working on the 2013 next year. So the hierarchy also represents a snapshot of your organization, and that is set up when you implement the system. But he is responsible really just for one sales department in the U.S., in the West. Now, in the middle, I've got tasks, or a template that is how we collect the information and bring that information into the host database. There's a single database that is where all of the information from your systems that we showed that would be integrated, such as your general ledger, your ERP, sales, units sold, payroll, all of that resides in this single database. And the budget information that you put into it is combined so that the reporting is very efficient. All of the information is in one single repository of information. And then finally, over on the right-hand side, you'll see a status or an actions screen. It shows where I am in a workflow process. So let's say that Alan is responsible, first of all, to input some information regarding projected sales. So for his department, we've set up a template that will represent the sales that he is going to be responsible for. So over here on the right, I'm going to go into Input, and there is logic behind this template, and you'll also recognize it. It looks very much like Excel. In fact, it is Excel set up for the Internet, and has the same things that users have been used to doing in Excel for years. It's really like the universal tool of finance. So over here on the left, it shows me just a reminder. It always tells me where I am in the budget process. So I'm in my 2012 budget, and over here in the middle of the screen, I've got the components that are going to help me come up with budgeted revenue in this case. And there's templates that I'll get to several in a few minutes, but these templates are designed by you and a consultant when you first set up the system to best model your business and how you do your budget. Most of us have done budgeting in Excel. You can even replicate your own spreadsheets. So in this case, you can see Alan has all of the yellow fields are where he is going to input what his units are. And we've got it set up to be able to pull prices from another spreadsheet. In essence, we have linked it. So here, over on the very left, I have a column that tells me, and it defines the type of line. So I'm going to click on this RA, which means reference account, and it's telling me that my sales prices are coming from, and here's what they are month to month. And that is controlled, in this case, by another department. Now, again, when you implement host analytics, there is full security for every account combination, entity, even dimension. I'll explain what that is in a minute. But anyway, the prices here are used in conjunction with units. So, and the results will be the revenue lines. So let's say for my commercial unit, I'd like to pull information from my last year's units sold. So what I can do is I've got forecast methods, and I've got tools up here towards the top of the screen. On my top left, I'm going to use just a monthly increase. And let's say I think I'm going to increase my units sold by, say, 2%. And I'm going to go, and Alan doesn't really need to see what those units were because we've already set that up in the system and it's pulling from the database. But here is the end result, and you can see that it's incrementing by 2% in each month. Now, I've got other tools. Let's say for my residential products, I know that I'm going to sell, let's just say, 2,000 in January, and I can use my Excel knowledge and literally just write a formula like, we're all used to doing. So I do that times, I can even click over there, my AQ22 times, let's add 5%. I'm going to increase my units, and I can copy that across. I'm doing Control-C, Control-V, and here I have incremented my units, as well as at the same time I have now populated these revenue lines down here, and you can see the formula is up here in the formula line. It shows that I've actually also used a discount pulling from these cells and multiplied my units times my prices. Finally, I've got other forecast methods. So let's say rather than a monthly increase, just for my annual value, I know I'm going to sell 25,000 units. And I'd like to use a scenario. I know that we're a very quarterly driven business, and usually I have sort of a hockey stick up at the end of the quarter. So I'm going to give it a 445 representing the different months of the quarters. So you can see that my budget for months 1 and 2 of quarter 1 are 1,923 versus a higher amount in my 3rd month of the quarter, and then so on throughout the year. So once I have put in my budget, or Alan has put in his budget, he saves, and the save is really writing it to the database so that that information is immediately available. Now, when we go back to the control panel, I want you to take a look at the workflow. And what Alan is going to do is he's ready to send this on to his manager for approval. So he's going to forward it and write a comment. Let's say, ready for review. And what's happening now is you can see that the status over here on the left of his department has a yellow arrow. And down here at the bottom, hopefully you can see that on your screens, are what those mean. So a red dot means we've just started, or my budget's being worked on. Yellow means forwarded, and it also can show the status of approval as well as the final completion. But what also happens is that this information is locked down. So over in my actions screen, there is no input available, because once that has been forwarded on for approval, you don't want someone else to be able to go change those numbers while the manager is evaluating it and, in the process of approving it. And finally, there's also an email going to be sent to, in this case, Andy Lay. And that lets them know that that you need to log on to host and look for that template and go through your normal process of approval. So this user, Alan, is done for the moment. So what I'd like to do is show you now the next role. Someone else in the system, let's say I've just logged on right before we started as myself. And my role in this case is a higher level user. I'm at corporate, I'm a finance manager, and I have access and I need access to more information. What each user has up here on the right-hand side, besides having help screens and some status, you also have a home page. And each user individually has the ability to set up whatever screen that they would like to go to as soon as they log on. So in my case, I wanted to be able to see a quick visual picture of the health of the organization. Now, in this case, I've got more graphs and key performance indicators than what I can fit on one screen. So you have the ability to set up numerous tabs, and you can organize those tabs even in, functional areas. So in this case, I wanted to be able to see unit information, and that's coming from a system, one of my ERP systems. When I go back to my home page, I have one that's showing me a combination of actual information as well as budget and forecast. So here in this first graph, I can see a picture of where I fall, even from comparing to the prior year. Down here in the circular graph, you can see I've got payroll information, or full-time equivalents, and product information. So this is going down below even what your general ledger may capture. So if you're bringing information in from your ERP or your revenue or your invoicing system, it can capture the product information, and it allows you to then budget down to a product, a customer, even a SKU number, if that's how you need to run your business, or that's how you can make the best decisions. So these are not just pretty graphs, but they're actually useful. So I can click on one, click on any of these, and start drilling down to get information. You can see I've got different choices of formats of my graph. I can also email a graph to someone and choose different formats. If I'm really a numbers person and I'm so used to looking at Excel, I don't really know where to start to do research. If I'm trying to figure out why I have an anomaly, I can look at it in a tabular format. I can combine the two. So it's really quite useful, and again, it's set up so that you can make it useful and efficient for going from day to day, in your job. So what I'm now going to do is go to the budget control panel, just like what we saw for Alan. Since I'm a finance manager, I'd like to look at some of the templates myself because I'm responsible for budgeting. And in this case, it looks similar, but there are more things going on here. So I have a view of the entire organization of our company. So it's got your hierarchy of organizations, as well as all the individual departments or divisions, or however you are budgeting. So you can see the different status symbols here. Some of the entities have already been approved or are almost complete. This U.S. West sales is where Alan was budgeting, and I'm aware of something that he's not, and I'm going to go ahead and have him make a revision. So I can go back to the approval and actually send back that template and tell him, please, revise the commercial units. And send that back, and now it will be, in essence, unlocked, and he'll be able to go back through that and make changes and then forward it back on. So now you can see that it shows that the U.S. West department is back in process. So the visualization, and there's also a report that you can run. It's the workflow status report to see where all of the different departments are in the process. So there's also, you can look at my different scenarios. I have many more scenarios, or several more scenarios available, but I'm going to stay with the 2012 budget right now. While Alan works on the sales plan, I'm going to go into my operating expenses and show you some additional tools that our users have to be able to set up their budget. So again, this is what we call our flexible templates. They allow the users to budget using the descriptions and the formulas and the models that they have been used to. So in Alan's, we didn't actually see what the prior year numbers were. In this case, I've got a comparison, and I've got 2011 actuals. Now, if I wanted to actually see it month by month, we have included that here, so you can take a look and see what was my actual expense last year. I also have tools such as being able to, let's say, spread information. Like, let's take, for example, my advertising. I had $65,000 of actual expense last year, and I know I'm trying to keep it to about the same, so what I can do is, rather than going cell by cell and putting in some amount, I can put in my 60,000, and then here's some of my spread methods, and these are user-defined at the time of setup. But let's say that my business is very summer intensive, And so without me having to get a calculator or even write a formula, I can, as you see, increase my dollars, my budgeted amount, as the year goes on so that it's higher in certain months than others. And these, again, can be quarterly, again, with hockey sticks during the quarter, or whatever makes the most sense. This is the same Excel grid that you saw before, and I have the ability to do formulas. But I also have things like drivers. So let's look at the travel and entertainment expense. I've got, let's see, a number of trips input available, and I don't have anything planned for January through May. So let's say that for January, I'm taking 3 trips. I want to be able to budget for 3 trips. And what it's doing, and I'll put my cursor on the cell, is taking information, once again, that we have linked from another spreadsheet. And these are my average expenses for airfare, hotel, meals, and the various travel expense that our people are going to incur. So the people that are inputting on these templates really can focus on the business of what they're doing and not have to worry about pulling together, well, what are airfares, and are there seasonal differences, and how do I multiply that out and roll it up? So as I'm making inputs into my travel lines, it's automatically calculating what the combined travel and entertainment expense will be for that month. I can also add more information than what you see. Let's say for convention expense, I want to add some additional detail to help the reviewer understand where I come up with my amount. So I click on my line. Here it's even highlighted with green, so I know that I've got additional lines. And right now we've only budgeted for 1 convention in New York. So I can add additional lines. Let's say I know we're going to go to one in Chicago. And let's say we know it's going to be 3 people are going, and I may also want to just put in, or I can put in an amount. I know we're going to spend $4,000 in June, and I can start building my expense and using this additional information. So once I save, then that information is included here and rolled up to my total. So once I have the information I need here, what happens is I save, like I did on the other template, and it's writing it to the database. So unlike when I used to budget in Excel, I had to pull all these spreadsheets together into a big workbook and then write formulas to bring them all up to a top level. I could actually do reporting right now and see a snapshot of what my expense is going to be, or my revenue, depending on what you're trying to look at. At any point, you can also send these, save it as Excel to other users and communicate the results like that. So one thing that all companies have to budget for is their people, what we call workforce. So I'm going to go back to my control panel, say we've finished our expenses for the moment, and let's go into our human resources template. Now this one looks very different than the one I just showed you. This has pre-built functionality because we know that companies have many of the same requirements, and this is using information that is generated from your payroll system like ADP or Paychecks, and it's imported into Host Analytics. Now that can occur either through a flat file or an ETL process, an extract, transfer, and load if you want to automate it. But once the rule is set up, it's really quite simple to keep rerunning it each month. So the budget entity shows me where I am in the organization, and this has full security around it. So if your users are only budgeting for their individual departments, that is all that they would have access to. Now, the power comes in being able to get to a very granular level. So let's go down to one of our employees and see how this information or how the expense is built up And in this case, this person, Brett McDonald, was promoted. So there's two different profiles that relate to the various salary level or applicable compensation items. So the power of this comes in my employee type. So in this case, Brett is considered a full-time employee, and there's certain costs that apply to all of my full-time employees. The Boston Red Sox is one of our customers, and they have 5 different employee types. So they have game day people and management and part-time people, and that allows them to be able to pull the information that relates to just that type of employee without having to go individually or even try to write complicated formulas depending on when people start or end their work, what their work schedule is, what their raises are. So if I go to my compensation items, the assigned over here on the right-hand side are those that are applicable to full-time employees. Now I've got others that are available, and it's just a matter of choosing the ones that are available when I set up my types. And I also can easily set up the taxes. You know, when I hit limits, this will all be factored into it. You know, what my bonus is, 401k matching, anything like that can be literally defined down to the dollar and used to be able to roll up your total human resources budget. I have the ability to also allocate information. Let's say that I wanted to be able to charge someone's salary across several departments, or let's say 2 departments. So Brett is not working all on sales, and let's say that we'd like to have him charge some of the salary to admin. So what I do is I change my percentage here to, let's say 80% of his time is still spent on sales, but only 20% on admin. And then when I save this, it will roll that up, and the correct departments will have that cost reflected in their budget. So it really saves time, and it's far more accurate than trying to do this all in Excel spreadsheets like what I've done before. So let me answer the question. I know some people have wondered, well, this is a cloud-based application. What if I'm not at a place where I have the internet available? What would I do then? So Host has something that's called offline planning, and it allows you to be able to, in essence, check out information or check out a template to work on it. Let's say you've got a flight planned and you know you're not going to have the internet. So I'm going to go to my desktop Excel, and here I have an extra tab that allows me to connect to the database to pull out what I want and then to be able to use it. And so I'm going to open a template, and it's still got the full security consistent with the security that's within the application. So I have to log on, and I tell it the name of my application. And so now I'm going to select one of those templates. So let's just grab that operating expense one that we saw, and you can see, let's see, U.S. West sales, operating expense with spread, and I'm checking it out. And what that does is now it locks down the data in the database so that a user trying to access that from the application will not be able to. So here is the same template that we just saw. Let's say that we wanted to add something for samples, and I still have those same tools that are available from within the application outside of it. So I can walk away with this on my iPad or my laptop and work with this template. And let's say I'd like to add $20,000 for samples. And once again, I can spread it. I'm going to spread it even quarterly, because we only do, say, quarterly shows and we need samples. So here's my quarterly samples budgeted there. And I could do more with it, but what I'm going to do now is check it back in to the application. Let's say I'm done. I'm going to save it. And then it's going to be checked back in to the host application. And if I go back to my application, sorry. Here I will be able to look at it, and I'll show you that it has updated that samples budget or whatever I have updated on that spreadsheet. And it's making, here it is, my samples show my quarterly spread, $20,000. So it's a much more efficient way of truly being able to get the work done whether or not you're even connected to the internet. And at the same time, keep the data accurate in the database so that you don't have multiple users updating the same thing and overwriting each other. One thing that I found was very difficult when I was a controller was being able to update my budgets and actually do what we call, a rolling forecast, where my actual information would be combined. So let's say now we've completed our 2012 budget, and I want to be able to now lay in my actuals for January and roll it forward. So we have unlimited scenarios that you can set up, and so I'm going to set up a forecast scenario. And this is going to allow me to combine my actual with my budget information. I'm going to add one, and just for ease of finding it, I'm going to call it 1 plus 11. So I'm going to have 1 year of actual, 1 month of actual, and 11 months of budget. So I'm keeping it in my 2012. I'm calling it a forecast, and this tells the system that this is what I want to be able to do, is to be able to start my budget with February, and my actuals then, if you look down here, my actuals will be included just for the first month, and I'm telling it now where to get the budget information. So I'm seeding, or it's basically just telling it where it's coming from. And it's coming from my 2012 budget. And I'm telling it to pull all the information that I have used. And now I'm going to save. Now, this is a couple minutes, or maybe a minute or so, but if you think about what the system is doing right now, we had a customer named Intelsat. It's a Washington, D.C. company that launches satellites, and they sell space to DirecTV. They were a Cognos customer, but it took them two people each 3 to 4 days to be able to roll their budget model forward with actual results each month. But Host Analytics replaced Cognos, and using these tools I'm showing you right now, they can literally roll forward their budget scenario or their templates in a matter of minutes. So it saves them a huge amount of time and gives those two people a lot more time to go do other things that are more productive for the company. So what it's doing now is it's literally adding the actuals to each one of those input templates, and I have to tell it that that I have access to it. Now, depending on how you set up your security, a power user, an admin user may do that. But again, these are not IT people. These are your finance users. So let's go back to a budget template. We'll go back to our operating expense with the spread. And you can see that I have now 1 month of actual laid in right next to my 11 months of budget. Or in this case, we went out 24 months. So it's highlighted in orange. And let's see. I have to grab the right scenario. Here we go. It's going to lay it out right next to the budget columns, and then you have the ability to, if you want to make changes to those budget amounts, you have the ability to do that. So here's my actual information, and it will feed with the budget information that we've included, and I can add all of that to my forecast. And that will become my rolling forecast for the period that I want. So now I wanted to show you how we report on the information. So we have that set up as what we call a file cabinet. And the file cabinet allows me to organize my reports in a very logical way that fits my business. We have ad hoc reports as well as dynamic reports. And one thing I'd like to show you is what this does is allow you to report on your information in the same dimensions, how you organize your business or how you report and want to generate your budget. So the first report I'm showing you is by product line. And this is showing me my sales analysis, and I can start drilling down. Now I've got my top level products, and again, you can define these reports to give you the segment, and the full security behind it is only showing the user the entities or the products or the product lines that they have access to. So by drilling down, I'm actually going deeper into the information that I've pulled from my actuals, and I can even go down to the transaction level. So if I double-click on a cell at any point, I can go down to my information that's come from my general ledger system. Now, if I want to change the presentation, let's say that instead of just seeing actual, I'd like to also lay in and see budget in comparison. So I have these dimensions up here at the top. I'm going to move time so that this way I can see budget compared with actual. So I tell it which budget, and I've got my 2012 along with my actual, and I click Run, and my report will change. And I have the ability to then drill down once again, but it's laying my budget information right next to it. And once again, I've got the same drill down. And if at any point I want to rearrange the report, it's merely dropping and dragging these dimensions here at the top. So let's say I want to show my company and move my product line around. That's something that's very simple to do. Now, if I have, and once again, I can drill down. If I have, let's say, financial statements that I want to be able to quickly obtain or run, let me show you how I would just set up a very quick, what we call it a 3-click financial statement. And what we're doing is I'm going to use something called report sets. And report sets are predefined, basically, rows and columns. So in this case, the dimensions, this is how you budget or organize your business. The report sets are actually predefined sets of those. So let's say I'm going to set up an income statement, and I've already predefined what my typical accounts are, or my line items. So I can literally drop and drag. This is my report definition, just like what I showed you in the ad hoc report. And my columns, I can give it, comparisons, actuals, budgets. Here I have a month compared to the budget and run. And we've predefined what the period is, or it's defaulting to whatever the current period is. So you can add additional parameters if you want. But in this case, you can see that this has the formatting that you might typically see in Excel. I can output this to Excel or to a PDF or even send it in an email. But it's got, the column definitions and the rows make it much simpler for users to be able to get to the reports that they use, and they can even save them in their favorites. Now, the last thing I wanted to show you is my, let's say, presentation ready reports. I have a, let's say I have to do, either I can do 10K reporting using this, and here is something that we have generated from the Host Analytics report writer. So I've got different pages of information, as well as I can generate a PowerPoint. Let me show you. A PowerPoint can also come from what we call our Executive Report Manager. And it's got various pages, and it includes information from throughout the Host application. So it's got income statements, it's got graphs. You can also put in text as well as just bring in documents. So users can either input directly or put in documents and just attach things that are from outside the application. So the way we do that is we define each page in our Executive Report Manager. And here you can see this is the definition of that PowerPoint I just showed you. So on each one of the pages, here is the properties of that page. So this is my title page. We have an agenda. And each executive report you can either generate in Word, like I showed you the 10Q, or in Excel. And bring in Excel reports, as well as you can also use this for PowerPoint. So my business summary, this is what you saw on one of those slides. And the beauty of this is if I ever make changes to my actual or my budget information, I rerun this and it's automatically updated. So it makes it much more efficient for those last few days before you have to have a board meeting or submit your 10Q information. It can be automatically updated and very efficiently included. So John, that is all I've got to show at this point.
Great.
Do we have any questions?
Let's go ahead and jump back to my screen, and we'll go ahead and hop into the Q&A portion of today's event. So I'll just remind folks very quickly, if you have any questions at all, now's a good time to ask, and we're going to jump in with questions that we've got already. Number one, how long does it take to do a typical implementation of the host system?
A typical implementation is between 8 to 12 weeks. They are, it depends on how many of your users can be involved, but it's, we say about a 30% involvement, 30% of a person's time, if you're on the implementation team. But we have had customers that have implemented in even less time than that, and it's really a process of our implementation team teaching you how to run the system yourself and set up those templates, once they teach you the building blocks of how it works.
Another question, can the reporting tool be used for other source data, such as Salesforce.com? Are you able to port data from other systems into the host reporting?
Yes, that's a great question. During the data load process, any kind of flat file can be imported into host. So the Salesforce.com information can easily be brought into host analytics and included in your reports to be able to do things like I showed, units shipped or, customers, to then be the basis with which you budget or look at your actual results. So yes.
And are these, are they pre-built connectors or customized?
We actually have both. We have some pre-built connectors with some of the more commonly used general ledger packages, but if you don't use one of those, then we have this data load wizard that allows you in about 7 steps to bring in that information and map it to how you want it stored in the host database.
How does host typically set itself apart from others in the budgeting and forecasting software space?
That's a very good question. One of the big differentiators is the fact that we are cloud-based and Excel-based. Excel being, like I said, the universal language. By having an easy way of getting information in, and there's no syntax that you have to learn and no complicated formulas in order to even do the modeling within the application, our users find that host is much faster for their users to be able to become proficient and to be able to use it, and it's a complete application so that it's usable for not only your budgeting as well as reporting and consolidations if that's applicable to your business.
And how does the licensing work for host?
It's licensed by user, and I guess for more detailed questions, we can have a salesperson get in touch with you, but it's a monthly subscription by user.
Okay. Is there a target, quote-unquote target customer sort of envelope for host analytics? You know, small companies, medium companies, large companies. What describes your you know, the type of customer who would be good, a good fit for host analytics?
We really go across all industries, and I would say the $50 million to, you know, large enterprise, publicly, you know, large conglomerate-sized companies. Right now, I'd say the majority, probably half of our customers are between the $200 to $500 million range, but we definitely have companies that are outside, either smaller or larger than that. And industry really doesn't matter because it's such a flexible system.
Okay. For calculating the budget, can you use formulas times prior year numbers? So, for instance, say, you know, 1 plus inflation times last February's actuals equals this February, et cetera. Can you? I mean, I guess it's a very Excel-like question.
Yes, you can. You can use, if you can write a formula in Excel, then you can write that same formula in Host. And again, you can link spreadsheets like you might have already done in Excel, but yes, you can use it to pull in even information that's outside, like, you know, if you wanted to use an inflation factor, we use this decision hub module that pulls in information from the internet that can be combined in your modeling for your budget.
Right. Do you support single sign-on?
Yes, we do. We use it ourselves, in fact.
Great. How much of the tool's functionality is available on mobile devices, like an iPad, et cetera?
We already deliver it on iPad through Internet Explorer. There's a free download from the App Store. It's much better on an iPad versus an iPhone just because of the size, but you still can access it on a phone. But we recommend the iPad.
And are you able to, is that just like a view-only interface, or are you able to interact with the tool more fully?
No, you can actually interact with it. It's as if you have logged on using your laptop.
Okay. Can the host analytics system handle data from different GL systems with different chart of account numbering?
Absolutely. That's one of the strengths of the host analytics system. It allows you to map across, or map the data regardless of where it's coming from, whether it's from, you know, one general ledger or a different, as well as multiple charts of accounts, because you define where all of those come together in your top level chart of accounts, and then it makes for reporting much simpler and much more straightforward.
And speaking of reporting, does the platform come with canned reports?
It does have some canned reports, things like trial balance, you know, some of the very basic reports that, you know, all finance people need. The report class is actually only 1 day, because once you learn the building blocks, like I was showing you just a little bit of those dynamic reports where you're dropping and dragging, but they'll teach you how to do those report sets and, you know, define the things that you use all the time. So not having canned reports for everything is, you know, really not a big deal, and it makes it so that you can customize those reports to the way your business is, you know, in a very quick fashion.
Gotcha. And I hate to say it, we're actually at the end of our time. I'm going to very quickly go through these last couple of items. There's a couple of leftover questions. What I'm going to do is work with Sherry and the folks at Host to make sure that we get all of those answered directly. For the folks asking, I apologize. We are just out of time, and I want to be respectful to everyone who is giving us their time today. So very quickly, you'll be prompted to take a short survey as soon as we're done in a minute here, and it takes just a minute. We also make it very simple there, just click of a mouse to request connection with either Sherry or the folks at Host Analytics, and we're happy to do that. Thanks, of course, to Host Analytics for sponsoring this event, for providing Sherry, who obviously knows her stuff not only from the platform's perspective, but it's great to have someone who's been a corporate controller and has been in finance and accounting for such a long time to provide her perspective. So thank you, Sherry, very much for giving us
You're welcome.
your time
Thank you.
and insight today. You bet. And with that, we're going to go ahead and bid everyone goodbye. You'll see the survey coming up next, and as I mentioned, any questions that we didn't get to, we will go ahead and have hosts work with you directly and reach out directly to get you the answers. Thanks so much for giving us your time. We hope to see you again at Performative or at our next event. Take care.